is our instrument. And when it's not sending us the proper signals, we're going to be misguided. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, our nervous system, which has to do with the ways that we're taking in information from our environment and how we're interpreting it inside of us, is meant to guide us towards safety and towards pleasure and away from danger and displeasure. There's a term for that, interoception. Interoception is our ability to sense what's happening in our bodies. And when our interoception is like running smoothly, we can really trust the signals of the body. We can have a feeling in our gut or in our heart that says, this person isn't right for me, or the situation isn't right for me, or the opposite. But when we're not able to be connected to those sensations, or when those sensations are sending us the wrong message, it's like having the GPS in your car calibrated to the wrong state. No matter what you put into it, you can't figure out how to get where you're going, or you can't figure out how to get there most efficiently. And so I want to talk about this and give you some tools to start to hone in on calibrating your own nervous system so it can guide you. I have this story I like to tell of when my nervous system was like super off. Several years ago, my husband had to have a pacemaker put in. He had arrhythmia in his heart rate was too slow. Now, he never had a stroke, he never had anything really bad happen, but it was still fairly traumatic, this idea that he needed a surgery and he had to have this pacer put in. So anyways, he gets the pacer put in and everything, and a few months later, we are going to go on a trip for spring break. Now, ironically, the day before the trip, he'd had a follow-up appointment with this cardiologist, and she said he was doing great. His heart was really great, and his chance of a stroke was like 1%, which is lower than the average person with a good heart. So we knew he was healthy. So we have to drive 3 hours to go up to Three Rivers, California, and he drives first. We usually take turns driving. And right before he starts driving, he's sitting in the driver's seat, and he just touches his chest like this. Well, as soon as I saw him do that, I started to freak out a little bit. I started to wonder, like, is his chest hurting him? Is he gonna have a stroke or a heart attack? Now, just, bear in mind, there's like no medical connection between needing a pacemaker and a heart attack. And usually when you feel things in your chest, it's a heart attack, but it didn't matter. What happened was I just started to get really anxious, and my heart was racing, and I got really hot. And I started tracking every move he was making. I was tracking how he was breathing. I was tracking his gestures with his arms, and everything that I saw confirmed that for sure this man was gonna die and kill the whole family driving up to Three Rivers, California. Now, luckily I understand this work, and I could tell myself, you know what, Hala, your nervous system is in fight or flight right now, and it's not giving you the correct information. In my brain, in my higher brain, I knew he's fine, he's not having a stroke. And in fact, I asked him, I said, how do you feel? And he said, great. And he put music on, he's like dancing. But there's still this part of me that didn't believe it. The way I like to say it is that my head knew what was real, but my body did not get the memo. Have you ever felt that way, where you know something isn't true, but it feels more true than anything? And it was an interesting weekend for me, because what I didn't realize was that was when I had my couple of years of struggling with anxiety. It was kind of in the beginning of that time, and I didn't really realize that I was about to go through a period of serious dysregulation, and I'll talk about another time why that was. So we get to this house that we rented in Three Rivers, and it was a couple of families and 10 boys under the age of 11. As you can imagine, total chaos. Now, I still have this nervous energy about me. We made it safely, but I was really having to use the tools I'm going to talk to you about through the whole car ride of keeping myself grounded and breathing and sort of talking myself, letting myself know that I was safe. I'll be honest, once we switched and it was my turn to drive, I felt much better. And then it was an interesting weekend. We were by this river and the kids were playing, and they were doing what kids do. They were jumping off of boulders and swimming, and my kids are very, very active, and they love to do death-defying things all the time. And usually I'm pretty hands-off. Usually I do a trauma assessment. I'm like, all right, how bad could it be? We could handle a broken limb. And I'd rather have them fall and scrape their knees rather than be like hypervigilant all the time. But this time it was different. Everything the kids were doing felt so dangerous to me. I was on high alert the whole time. And, to the point where I had to ask my husband or my best friend, like, should we stop them from doing that? Like, that feels really dangerous to me. And both of them kind of looked at me like, no, that's fine. So I knew something was going on. I wasn't reading reality right. There was even one evening where I felt really annoyed at my best friend who was with us, and I had no reason to be annoyed at her. She was irritating me. And I remember sitting her down saying, I feel like I'm really mad at you, but I think my nervous system is just miscalibrated. And then finally on the third night, I decided to go give myself a little bit of alone time, and I went and I sat by the river, and I just watched the water running over the rocks, and I tried to take in that rhythm. And what I realized was I wasn't trusting the flow of life. Everything felt really jagged and haphazard. And in that moment, just sitting and breathing and being in nature, I was able to feel my nervous system regulate a little bit. And it's not like it got fixed and I lived happily ever after. I continued on a really deep journey of looking at why this anxiety was arising for me and addressing that. But the point of the story right now is I want to invite you to reflect on, like, how is your GPS system? Do you trust the signals of your body? Do you feel like it guides you properly, or does it not? And one of the first things we have to do is cultivate our ability to be with our sensations, with our emotions, with our impulses. We have to be able to have accurate interoception. So there's that word again, interoception, our ability to sense what's happening inside of us, specifically our internal organs. So I'm not talking about knowing that your shoulder hurts or your knee hurts, although that can be part of it. It's knowing my heart is racing, my gut feels tight, or I don't feel anything at all. And the thing is that our body isn't always signaling us correctly. Like in the car, my body was not signaling me correctly. That was my anxiety. But because I'm in the habit of being connected to my sensations, I was able to know that. I was able to know this is not intuition, this is fear, because it was amplified. So what are the steps? So step one, before feeling your stuff, you have to get resourced. So being resourced means being connected to something that grounds you or anchors you so that you can turn to those uncomfortable sensations that might be coming in. It's kind of like if you were in the ocean drowning and I'm like at the shore, like yelling at you, like, notice where the waves are coming from and what do you feel in your body? Like, that's quite obnoxious, right? You're drowning. I need to throw you a life raft and you want to have something to hold on to. Once you have something grounding you, right, holding that you can hold on to, then you can get a lay of the land, right? Oh, the current's coming from here. There's safety over there. Same with our sensations. If we're going to go into that landscape, into that territory, and especially if you're a trauma survivor, the sensations are not a safe place to be. Maybe you deal with your sensations by dissociating away from them, or maybe they feel like they overwhelm you. So the first step is to find something that feels like it connects you or it anchors you. So you want to find that. It can be breathing, grounding. Once you find your resource, then you can start to notice what you feel. And then we can get better, like more comfortable being with our sensations, and sometimes it's emotions that come up, or even impulses. And then once we're in that relationship, we can move to that next level of our healing. So I want you to reflect on what is your relationship with your sensations without shame. Because, the truth is once you're really tracking stuff, you might discover things that are scary or are embarrassing or that you don't want to admit to yourself. And I often joke that like sometimes I have the impulse to like hit my children or to like, go and like wring my husband across the neck. If I really track it, I have violent impulses. And that honestly surprised me. But the truth is that if I can notice it, like, oh my gosh, like I'm really mad right now. My arms are hot and I want to like throw something. When I can name it, when I can be with it, then I can tame it. I love that saying, you have to name it to tame it. So step one is just noticing what you feel. What are the sensations in your body?